Good news, Josh McDaniels is still there. Better news, Nick Caserio is staying. However, with Tom Brady's free agency coming, this has the potential to be a very crazy and hectic offseason for the Patriots. Dante Scarnecchia, the offensive line coach, is retired, which is not good for the offense generally. So, all things considered, this is the most important offseason for the New England Patriots franchise since fill in the blank.
I'm going to say 2010 because everybody thinks the Patriots win Super Bowls year after year after year. And while it seems like that, they did have this 9-year stretch when they had no Super Bowl victories. Yes, they went, but they didn't win one in that stretch. So in 2008, if you remember, Tom Brady tears his ACL in the first game. They have a winning record. They don't go to the postseason. Next season, they lose in the wild card round, which was the last time they lost in the wild card round until this year. Then they lose Dan Pease, and they have all these things going on. And they had a great draft that year. That's when they got Rob Gronkowski. That's when they got some of those guys, Devin McCourty, who are so important to where they are now. So I think that was kind of the offseason that started propelling them back into a Super Bowl team. Now, they didn't, it took a couple more years before they won one, but then they got rolling. And now we see them as annual participants in the Super Bowl and contenders for the Super Bowl.
And I think that's a great choice because they got blown off the field at home in the wild card round by the Baltimore Ravens that year. And this is the first time since then that they made an exit that early from the postseason. But I think I'm going to go all the way back to 2000 when they picked up Bill Belichick in trade in January and found a guy named Tom Brady in round 6 of the draft a couple of months later. And nobody really knew where the Patriots were going to go and what they were going to be in 2000, 2001 and beyond. But this just feels like the most significant and potentially tumultuous offseason for the Patriots since then. And it's critical that they make good decisions. We talked earlier about how important it will be for teams to know who their quarterback is going to be quickly before the options get gobbled up. The Patriots need to know what Brady is going to do. They need to know if he's going to embark on a free agency tour and visit a bunch of different teams. And if he's going to do that, they can't sit around and wait for him to maybe decide the grass isn't greener anywhere else. They got to have somebody ready to go. And it wouldn't shock me if they actually had someone lined up to come in and then Brady decides he wants to stay after all. And the Patriots have to figure out how to wade their way out of that mess, but they can't afford to wait. They're going to have to get this figured out. They have to have a quarterback they like. And maybe they love Jarrett Stidham enough to do it and just make him the guy. And then they can wait for Tom Brady to go out and check out 5, 6, 7, 8 different teams. But I think they're going to need to move quickly. It's going to be critical, and I think this is the most important offseason for them since the year that Belichick and Brady arrived. All right, Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson are MGM's favorites, co-favorites for MVP next year. If you had to pick one non-quarterback favorite to win the MVP award for the 2020 season, it would be blank.
Well, the name that pops out immediately is Michael Thomas, just because of what he did in setting the NFL record, won Offensive Player of the Year, but a receiver's never won the award, not even Jerry Rice. So how do you pick a receiver in this scenario? And I can't. I would be more apt to pick Aaron Donald than I would be to pick Michael Thomas, just for that simple fact. But I'm going to go with who I think now has become, based on what he did in the postseason, the best running back in the NFL, and that's Derrick Henry. That's a team, depending on what they do at quarterback, that could go to the Super Bowl next season. And I think you're going to see them as contenders. They've just gotten better and better under Mike Vrabel. And Derrick Henry is going to lead the way for that team, no doubt about it. Doesn't matter who they get at quarterback. Derrick Henry's going to lead the way, and I think he's probably going to lead the league in rushing again unless he gets hurt.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And if Derrick Henry can get off to a fast start, something that he's never done in his NFL career, he could get 2,000 yards or more. This guy's gotten better and better and better each year of his career. He reminds me of Jim Brown. And when he gets moving, he needs a few steps to get moving. But once he gets moving, he is unstoppable. I'm going to go back to Thomas, though. Here's why Thomas has a chance. Every year that there's been a great performance by a receiver who has been potentially MVP worthy, his quarterback ends up being the MVP. That's how it goes. This year, I think Drew Brees is going to stay, and I think we're going to see a sharing of that job between Drew Brees and Taysom Hill. The handwriting is already on the wall that that's what's coming. So you could have Michael Thomas having gigantic numbers. You could have neither quarterback having the kind of numbers that cry out MVP. and then that would give Michael Thomas the opening. I just can't imagine him having another season like he did last year when he set the all-time record for one NFL campaign with 149 catches. And I thought he would get a little more steam for MVP last year. But with Lamar Jackson, I don't think anybody else was getting any steam for it. But that was the year Drew Brees missed 5 games. And that's a year a receiver, if ever, is going to stand out. All right. Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, said his team has an embarrassment of riches at quarterback, not to be confused with the times that the quarterback situation in Jacksonville was just flat out embarrassing. Blank is the team with the actual best quarterback situation in the league, Charean.
Well, it's obviously this past season was the Saints with what they had. But since all 3 of those guys are now free agents, you can't go with the Saints. I'm going to go with San Francisco 49ers. I know there are a lot of questions after the Super Bowl about Jimmy G, but it's probably more for my love for Nick Mullins and what he did last year in 2018 when Jimmy G was out. I think this is a really good quarterback. I think he's going to be a great quarterback in the league. And whether it's for the 49ers or somebody else, they trade him somewhere else. This is going to be a good quarterback in this league, I think, based on what he did in that small sample size when Jimmy G was out. And then they have C.J. Beathard. So I think they have a great quarterback situation in San Francisco, assuming Jimmy G can be the guy they think he can be.
Yeah, but he had a chance to be the guy they think he can be, and he missed Emmanuel Sanders open, and I'm not forgetting that anytime soon, even though some 49ers fans would prefer that I do. Actually, they should prefer that he made the throw. Then there would be nothing for us to talk about when it comes to limitations on Jimmy G. I'm going to stick with the Saints, though, because I think Brees will be back. And Hill, I think they're going to match whatever offer is coming their way. There are people who think that Sean Payton has been talking about Taysom Hill getting an offer sheet from a team at the bottom of round 1 because Payton would rather have the first-round pick. I think that he wants someone to do his negotiating for him. That when you sign the offer sheet, all right, all you have to do if you're the Saints is say, well, match it. Good. And I think they're going to match whatever offer sheet he signs. I think it's going to be Hill. I think it's going to be Brees. I doubt they're going to be able to keep Teddy Bridgewater, but I could see something like maybe a Chase Daniel working his way back to New Orleans. He was there at one point. A veteran quarterback who sees an opportunity to, hey, if Drew Brees gets injured, come in and play a good bit and play with an offensive mastermind like Sean Payton. So they'll find another Teddy Bridgewater to go with Payton and Hill, and I think they'll be in great shape for 2020. All right, the Buccaneers appeared to tease new uniforms on Twitter yesterday. Buccaneers aside, the blank need new jerseys more than anyone else.
Well, the Browns are getting new jerseys, and I don't know how much you can do with the colors that they have and the plain helmet. But they need to go back to something more traditional. That is just an awful uniform. Of course, I'm not a big fan of orange anyway. As we all know, my love for the Aggies, you can't like orange. So I'm not a big fan of the orange. But the colors are just dull. But they messed up those uniforms when they changed them, 5 years ago? And they need to go back to, I think, to something at least more traditional that looks a little bit better. Not much you can do with the helmet, but at least the gray face mask, I like that better than the white face mask, and I know they still have the gray, but they've got to do something to improve those uniforms this year.
I knew this was going to happen when Nike became the official apparel provider of the NFL back in 2012, and it's actually good that the NFL requires players to use only one helmet all year, or we would see Nike getting these teams to be like Oregon used to be, where you have a different helmet every week. They want to change uniforms all the time. And one thing I've noticed recently, I'm going to get on my soapbox here for a minute. We didn't do airing of grievances this week, so I'm going to go ahead and air a grievance. I don't like it when teams make these uniform changes without giving the fans at least 1 year's notice that jersey you're buying is about to be rendered obsolete. So maybe you should wait a year. And, like if you're buying your kid a Christmas present and it's a Matt Ryan jersey and the Falcons announce right after the season ends, hey, we're getting new uniforms this year, kind of like to have known that in advance. And if the Buccaneers are going to be changing their uniforms now, if they, like the Falcons, have been secretly reworking their uniforms, I would have liked to have known that before I bought that Jameis Winston may not be there anyway, but before I bought that Bucs jersey, if somebody was actually going to be there, I'd like to have known that if I waited a few months, I'd have had the new one. All that said, the jersey that needs to go is the Seahawks alternate jersey, that screaming, retina-burning, highlighter yellow, whatever that is, that lime yellow crap that they wear, that has got to go. And when they pair it with the pants, it makes me long for the days, Charean, of black and white TV, because that's as bad as it gets. Fortunately, they don't wear that all the time. All right, Jim Zorn was shocked by the amount of access that the XFL gives to fans. If you didn't see it, you can hear the coach calling plays. You hear the quarterback communications. They're in the locker room at halftime. Blank is the best idea that the XFL has created.
Well, I think you probably agree with this one. It definitely was the kickoff. And I think you said it. It was those electric football games that you and I grew up with playing. And that's exactly what it looked like, with the two teams lined up 5 yards apart and waiting till the returner caught the ball to return it. And more than 90% of the kickoffs were returned. You cut out the injury factor. And that's what we want to see. We want to see a kickoff, but we don't want to see all those injuries. And I think they found a way to do that. And I think this is something that the NFL needs to look at pretty quickly to make it work, because it's fantastic. I think we all enjoyed that part of the XFL game.
And I hope that pride doesn't keep the NFL from adopting this if that's the right thing. It's not like it's patented by the XFL. If the NFL wants to do it, they can do it. But there's always been that resistance to do something that someone else does. But wouldn't it be something if the XFL right out of the gates has found the solution that the NFL has been searching for in vain for the last decade? It eliminates the high-speed impact that can cause catastrophic injury. It looks great. I mean, it really does. I was having a fit of nostalgia over electric football, and then I remembered how frustrating the damn game is, and the nostalgia went away quickly. But seeing those guys standing there, frozen in motion and that's what they need to do. They need to start adopting the poses of the various electric football players while they're waiting for the returner to catch the ball. But I think it's great. That's by far the best thing they've done, and I hope the NFL is paying attention and is willing to do what is needed to improve its kickoff and make it safer.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.